Let's learn a bit about reusable elements while building a tooltip function on our site. So a tooltip function, in case you're not aware what I'm talking about, is I just simply want to create a little info icon that when clicked, right, launches a pop-up which has some info text for the user. So, clicking on this next to the upvote icon would give some information about voting, right? What does it mean to upvote a question? So I'll just quickly format this, create some body text here. I'll copy some generic text. Okay, that text box doesn't need to cover all of this literal value. It will automatically extend down. And I'll add another little icon here to close the pop-up. So that's going to hide this new pop-up that we just created, which I'll give a name, right? That can be pop-up info. And when this info icon is clicked, let's just make it a little smaller. Then we will show that pop-up. Voila. So this obviously isn't a reusable element. A good use case for making this a reusable element would be, well, what if we also wanted to have one of these guys over here by the answer button to give some context to the user about what it means to answer a question? Well, then we would have to create a whole nother pop-up, with some more info text, and you get the idea. I'm doubling up. I'm creating more work for myself than is needed. What would be better would be to convert this guy into a reusable element, which I'll call tooltip. And Bubble will automatically give us a size for our tooltip that is much bigger than we need. So I'll just shrink that up. So now we have a tooltip and we need a pop-up. So I can just make use of the pop-up that we already created here on the question page. And a nice little tip is I've actually got a workflow associated with this pop-up. When we click this close icon, then the pop-up will disappear. If I just copy this, you might have noticed this in your own Bubble travels, and then paste it, right? There it appears. But there's no action here associated with closing that pop-up, unfortunately. So if I just undo this, go back to the question page, okay, instead of just copying it with Control or Command C, I'll come down here and click Copy with Workflows. And then on the tooltip on my reusable, I'll right click and I will paste with workflows. Okay, and now this cross is actually preserving that close action. So I can delete this pop-up info. I can delete this guy, and I'll add in my tooltip over here. Now I'll preview that page, and our new pop-up works like it should now as a reusable element. So now, of course, the question is, well, okay, we want to use this icon, this same tooltip down here for an answer. But it's giving us exactly the same text as here. So how do we actually populate this text dynamically? How do we pass information from this page into the reusable element? Well, what we can actually do is, just like any other group, any other container, we can set this reusable element to have a data type, right? So I can set that to be a type text for the content. And then over on the question page, that's where I can actually plug in some data to that reusable element. So over here, for the data source, I might say, here is some info on on voting for a question. And over on this guy, I might say, here is some info on answering a question. Now you might have noticed this is actually not a very convenient way to add text, okay, because I'm writing in this really small input here that I can't add line breaks or anything. That's unfortunately a limitation of Bubble, but a handy little workaround is actually to use a formula that you know is going to be true, like the URL, this URL, or rather, yeah, this URL is not empty, okay, because it's never going to be empty, formatted as text. Now you've seen me do this before, so when it is true, okay, we don't need to worry about it because it's never going to be true. So we just care about over here, and we can add the same text here, but now we can add some rich text formatting. You know, I can underline this if I want to. I can create a line break. Okay, and in the tooltip now, right, I've got this pop-up. I can set the type of content of the pop-up to be text, right? And the data source is going to be the tooltips text. So we're going from the page to the reusable element to the pop-up. And now finally, we're going to the text. So I'll insert dynamic data and grab the pop-ups text, i.e. the parent group's text. And if I click on this pop-up now, I should get, so here's some info on voting for a version. I didn't format that correctly. I've done this the wrong way around. The pop-up, the URL not being empty, yep, that is always going to be true. It's never going to be false. So I just did that the wrong way around. Voila, there is our dynamic text. Now, what if I don't want to click on this tooltip icon to launch this pop-up? What if I've just got, instead of this, I've just got some text that says info. You know, you can imagine this being embedded within another element or a longer sentence. I've just got some text here that says info, and I want to be able to click on that and launch that same pop-up. Well, one handy thing that we're able to do in Bubble is access this action which says trigger a custom event from a reusable element. So we can actually trigger events, trigger workflows that exist in reusable elements. The catch is we only need that reusable element to be existing somewhere on the page. So we do have it somewhere on the page. The only thing that we don't have is a custom workflow. So I'll add one here, create a custom event. We'll call it show pop-up. And when that's clicked, all we'll do is we'll show that pop-up info. But what might be more handy for us is to display some data in that pop-up. So what we could do is we could have this custom pop-up be a type of thing as well, because not only, you know, containers, groups can have a type of thing, but also actions, custom workflows, I should say, can have a type of thing. And then we can have an action here which displays in the pop-up, because the pop-up is also of type text, the current workflow's text. We'll forget about this, the existing workflows that we had for now. And if I go back to my question page, I'll add a workflow here on the text, which says when this text is clicked, then what I will do, I'll trigger a custom event from a reusable element. That reusable element, of course, will be tooltip. The custom event, there was only one there, so it was automatically suggested, is that one we just created, show pop-up. And then the workflow thing, that's going to be some text. Okay, so I could do the same thing I did before with the evaluator to format as text, but just for simplicity, I'll just add in some text like that. And now we should, because on the tooltip, right, this text here is taking the parent group's text, this pop-up, and this pop-up's text is being changed by this action here, display data and pop-up info. By the way, this is a very handy way to see all of the actions that are associated with an element. All right. So if I click this, now we have some text appearing there. Final thing, we're actually in this system only able to send one bit of information, right? One value, this text value. We can't send through also a value for this header, or can we? If I go back to this tooltip, I am able to set a custom state. Let's try this out. Title, which is a text field, okay? Doesn't have a default value. On the question page, okay, on this existing workflow that we have, we're passing through some text for the body, right? But what we can also do, just like we can set the state of any element on the page, we can also set the state of a reusable element. You just have to define those custom states within the reusable element, and then on whatever pages that you're storing that reusable element, you're able to set those custom state values. So I'll choose here tooltip, that custom state will be title, and we can set it to be, how to answer a question. Okay, I'll do this step by step. So we click info, we set the state of the tooltip to be how to answer a question. And now we're showing that pop-up, right? It's still showing info, but that's because we haven't configured this yet to show the custom state. On the tooltip, if I look for the title, you can see that it is appearing here as this how to answer a question. So the last thing that we have to do on this info text is just set that to be the tooltip's title. How to answer a question, some text. Like always, this could do a little bit of work UI-wise, but at least now we've covered some important ways that you can manipulate and work with reusable elements.